Good evening and welcome to this special meeting of Council to hear submissions for the 2020-2021 proposed budget in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989. We're meeting on the 28th of July 2020. To start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. The Local Government Act, the Act, Part 12, Section 395 of the Act states that council meetings may be closed to the public during the prescribed period, 1st of May 2020 to the 1st of November 2020, provided it is live streamed. This is to ensure local government decision making can continue and remains transparent during the coronavirus pandemic. This meeting is open to only those submitters who wish to speak to their submissions to the proposed annual budget 2020-2021 and for councillors to hear their presentations. Councillors and council staff are required to continue to act in accordance with the Councillors' Code of Conduct and the Local Government Acts 1989 and 2020, local laws and other acts and policies as prescribed. Where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed to 6:30 p.m. 28th of July 2020. Okay, let's hope not. Councillors, I have a recommendation that Council closes the special meeting of Council 2020, 28th of July 2020 under the Local Government Act 2020, Part 12, Section 395, and 2, notes that where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed to 6 p.m. 4th of August 2020. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Neiman, seconded by Councillor Petrisma. Is there any opposition? No, I declare the matter carried, there being no opposition. So continue on then, I have 6 councillors in the chamber and Councillor Matron attending via Zoom on the screen. The councillors can see you, even though you're not on the YouTube presentation. So no apologies or leave of absence. Declarations of interest or conflicts of interest for this evening's agenda, councillors? No, thank you. Officer reports, our people, nil, our place, nil, our economy, and this is the 2020-2021 budget, Section 223 submissions. So at the ordinary meeting of Council, 16th of June 2020, Council resolved to give public notice that the Council prepared a budget for 2020-21, and this document has been available for a minimum statutory period of 28 days. Members of the public were invited to provide submissions to the budget in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989 by 5 p.m. Wednesday, the 15th of July 2020. So we now have a recommendation. Councillor? Yes, Councillor Lester?
Yes, I move that as councillors we note the submissions and we hear the presentations in support of those submissions to the proposed annual budget 2020 to 2021 in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989, and that we consider the submissions to the proposed annual budget 2020 to 2021 prior to its adoption at the ordinary council meeting to be held on Tuesday, the 18th of August 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition? No. Thank you, Councillor. There being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. So now we move to the item itself, and I believe we have 2 submitters who wish to speak to us. I will invite the first one, and that is Ms. Pounter. If you would like to approach the lectern, please, if you'd like to speak to your submission.
My name's Margaret Panther. As a volunteer, I coordinate a project to remove needlegrass type weeds from Castlemaine roadsides and streets in conjunction with the Castlemaine Field Naturalist Club and with the council grant, which pays for removal on roadsides. I've been digging out needlegrass and asking for help for over 10 years, and I very much appreciate the increasing help from council in recent years. It hasn't always been like this. A $2,000 increase in the grant during the past year has, I think for the first time, enabled us to actually finish the season's work, despite unseasonal summer rain, meaning we had to start again just when we thought we'd finished. Many infestations are now greatly reduced, and eventually less money will be needed to control them. Council Parks and Gardens workers have become extremely helpful and enthusiastic and increasingly knowledgeable about getting needlegrass out and preventing it spreading. But, like Oliver Twist, I'm asking for more. There are other noxious and invasive environmental weeds moving into Castlemaine that aren't being tackled. Eradicating them when there aren't many is much cheaper than trying to control them every year after they've taken over. There are also noxious and invasive environmental weeds in other parts of the Shire. I realise COVID-19 may have stressed Council's budget, but an obvious source of funds is the $20,000 proposed for Christmas decorations, as production and transport would cause greenhouse emissions, use up resources, and end up as rubbish to be disposed of, all just to promote what has become a stressful orgy of consumerism. $20,000 used for weed removal could actually save council money in the long run by tackling weeds earlier rather than later. My interest in removing weeds is because I love natural ecosystems, and weeds are one of the biggest threats to them. Another threat is the incremental and often unnoticed destruction of roadside Indigenous vegetation. Council sometimes allows and sometimes causes this destruction. I would like enough funding for all departments to become aware of and implement Council's roadside management conservation strategy. One budget item which could help would be for Council to fund its Environment Department to document the effects of projects, works and permits on Indigenous vegetation, and to work with the other departments to avoid damage. In summary, I would like the budget to raise the priority of one of Castlemaine's most significant assets, its remnant Indigenous vegetation, by more funding to remove invasive weeds and funding to avoid incidental destruction of Indigenous vegetation.
Thank you very much. Well, before you go, do any councillors have any questions of Ms. Panther?
Have you made a submission under the local laws, because there is a weed?
I have here.
Okay.
No? Any other councillors have any questions? So you're saying $20,000 would go a long way towards removing these new or arriving noxious weeds?
It would be a huge help to weeds. Like little bits of money go a long way with weeds.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much for that submission, and councillors will consider it in the general mix of submissions to the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope you can only way all right. Good. See you, I might help you. We've got to wait till the CEO. The cycle safety tool.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
We're not going to be. Yeah.
Thank you, CEO. And now the second submitter, presenting in person, is from Cycle Safe tonight, Alexander.
Thank you for, I presume you've got the submission already and read it, so you know what's going on. So I'm really just here to say thank you for the money that has been spent on cycling infrastructure, you know, the upgrade of the paths in the previous budgets to improve the flood proofness of those. There's still some more work to be done on the safety of those because there's ruts and stones and some muddy bits that might be a bit dangerous, but they're way improved. And also the 2 crossings and some upgrades on tennis court. It's fantastic that council's got together with Healthy Heart and has supported that. And we've been really grateful for the support that council has given and it's shown that we believe an increase in the support and investment for cycling. So I guess I'm here for a bit of clarification, I suppose. So I know that 895,000 has been allocated to walking cycling in the budget, which seems fantastic. And from what I understand, 400,000 is on the tube and footpaths, 177,000 is spent on renewal and other improvements, which I don't know what that is. 250 is on the pedestrian crossing through Vic roads or regional roads, and then 69,000 on design, and I'm not sure what that is either. And I've found this, like I've been through the last 10 years of budgets reviewing what council has done in terms of spending over things on cycling infrastructure in particular, and I know it's a shared path situation, which is great. I'm finding it really difficult to get clarity around what is actually supporting cycling infrastructure and what is footpaths and what isn't cycling. So walking cycling is grouped together, and as someone who's trying to work with that, our group, it's very difficult to find out what's actually going on. So I'm wondering if anyone can clarify for this coming budget, any of that money there, that if they know what is being specifically spent on what cycling infrastructure, and whether we can consider getting something clearer in our budgets that shows really what's happening in relation to spending for cycling.
Well, the summer officer here,
Yeah.
oh, no, it's not.
We're-
We're in that. So is this a question that has to be taken on notice?
We're in a bit of a reverse auction arrangement here, Mayor, because the purpose of these meetings is for you to present your views to council as opposed to for council to answer questions of you, Greg.
Yeah.
So
Do you want me to rephrase that?
that's the intent, and we're more than happy to walk through with you outside of this forum if
Yeah.
you like the detail of what's in there.
Yeah.
But a couple of things. You talked about what's renewal. Basically, that means we've got some and they're predominantly footpaths that are cracked and broken, and they're dangerous for people. That's what that money gets spent on.
Yeah.
The new path, the 250,000 you talk about, the pedestrian crossing up near Parker and Barker, it's actually $500,000 in total. It shows as 250 in the budget for completely complicated reasons, but it's a $500,000 project that we're getting federal funding for. What were the other ones that you mentioned? Sorry.
The track from.
Oh, the Chewton tracks. So we've got we've got 2 projects that we've applied for funding for from the state government that would match council's money to do what is generally referred to as the missing link in the Campbell's Creek section of the track, the one you know well, right down the end there. We're trying to get that done, as well as making a connection all the way across to Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve. Jess, tell me if I get that wrong. But Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve, so that we really bring in that whole area, connect all of that in. That's what that does. We are hunting for external funding to support us with that. We haven't heard back on that one yet, but we're hopeful. We'll
Is
see.
that 69,000?
No, that 69,000 is designed for future projects. So we always try and stay in front of the program. And that 69, unless I've got it wrong, Jess, it sounds like the right amount. The 69 is for the design of the following year's program, so that we can keep hunting more money from others because we're ready.
Yeah.
Is that about right, Jess?
Sorry. Yes, that's spot on. Each year we need to do the design work for whatever the next year's work would be. For example, the Chewton Paths project or Ray Street in previous years, for example.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so Greg, you've spoken about what you can't understand from the budget, and you presented a long list of items that Cycle Safe Victoria recommend. Do you wish to speak to that further?
Yeah, okay, sure. So, yeah, so it looks like from what I've seen here that most of this spending is this state 95 is mostly on footpaths or that sort of infrastructure and not a lot on cycling. And yeah, there's a list, I don't need to read them out and go through them, but there's a list of ideas there that are part of our plan. We have a whole sort of setup of stuff that we're hoping to get done to improve the network and I guess connect those gaps that are missing. So we'd really appreciate that if there's some consideration in this upcoming budget that some of this money is actually allocated to some of those things. And yeah, it's listed, so we don't need to waste time on that.
Mayor, may I ask a question? We've been talking for a while, Greg, and I think one of the things that stayed in my mind from conversation a long time ago was that the order of priority was it seemed like we had a strong feeling towards let's deal with the off-road bike and walking first, recognising that the people who will ride on the roads already ride on the roads, but we can do better, but get the things off-road happening first as more of a priority. Not to say we don't do the other eventually, but is that how you feel about that?
That's certainly our position. So cycle safety, for those of you who don't know, we're much more about supporting families and those people who don't drive to ride. So currently 7% seen as confident riders, no riding. I'm a confident rider, I don't need any of this. I'll ride on the road, I'll ride anywhere. But there's a whole bunch of 62% of people that would ride if things were good. 30% of people aren't going to ride, so don't worry about that. So those 60% are lots of families, elderly, young children, whatever, the people who don't feel safe or don't feel supported to ride. So we're about trying to make the situations in this shire about those people being able to get out and cycle safely, happily, and in nice surrounds. So and we have a fantastic arterial already that the council has invested in over the years, and there's gaps and things in that we just need to boost up to get that all connected. And that is for Castlemaine, but it's also for the other towns as well. And we've got 8 cycle groups now together as a type of collective when we're talking together and working together about putting together some vision and some stuff for this upcoming walking cycling strategy to try and ensure that this strategy has more strength and more, I guess, push behind getting those people who would cycle but aren't onto their bikes and into the community.
Thank you. So you have quite a collection here. Certainly it looks like more than one person's input or more than one group's input. And they vary hugely in the dollar amount that might go towards them. But do you want to nominate your top 3 in terms of value for given a council with scarce resources?
Well, I'm totally aware the council has scarce resources, and which is why I've included things that cost hardly anything and things that can cost quite a bit. And look, any of those, from my perspective, are great. A connection. We've already just done this great work behind the tennis courts on that section from Western Reserve. We've now got a path from Western Reserve crossing behind the tennis courts, and then the official path stops. If we can get that up to Forest Creek, that would be a fantastic link into Wesley Hill community. The sports area there, which we've been working on, we're trying to get happening for several years. That link would be linking South School, St Mary's and schools and town and Western Reserve to all that sports facility up there, so kids could actually ride and connect that. And that could also connect to Forest Creek, and that's a simple, smaller, arterial connection, I suppose, in terms of that. If there's not much in the budget, then some, work on the actual existing paths in Forest Creek and Campbell's Creek to just get rid of the ruts and the loose gravel and all that sort of stuff is not much. Some new bars on crossings and things like that don't cost much, and that'd be fantastic. And then there's bigger major projects about connecting crossings and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think the Camp Reserve one through there to the railway station from the Campbell's Creek Trail, that's, I believe, part of the master plan for the Camp Reserve. So that'll wait for when that happens. So really, it's whatever council thinks they can afford to do, and I'm sure we've got something we'd love done, but it'd fit in with that.
Okay, and I'm sure there's a bundle of works that could probably slide into service requests or smaller items that might be able to be accommodated in an operating budget, but I'm sure the CEO will be able to give us further information on that.
Oh, yes, Mayor, if there are items of potholes or rutting or bits that are a bit unsafe for people, then always we've got maintenance budgets for for those
They're
parts,
part
so
of
we
the
can do
general
the
sort of
easy
thing,
stuff, the small
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's a matter of just knowing about them sometimes, Greg, so.
Yeah,
whatever
and
you
that's
can do
what
to
we
help.
want to lift our game on and help, get a relationship with council so we can report those things in more detail to you, so we can get those addressed. But yeah, that Wesley Hill bit there, that's great. Any better connections into the railway station would be appreciated by every commuter who cycles, walks and drives there and buses there. We've got ideas for that too. So whatever you think you've got, talk to us. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, thanks very much for that comprehensive
Thanks, everyone.
list of things, and thanks for coming to talk to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, councillors, having heard the submissions, two submissions, and considered the others, I'm sure we'll consider them further. Separately, and the formal discussion before the budget comes to us. The next meeting, yes. So there being no other matters on the agenda, I think I can declare the meeting closed at 5:55.